You're watching The View, expecting the usual mix of morning banter and celebrity insight, when everything shifts mid-sentence. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the iconic former governor, is in the middle of explaining his stance on immigration reform, using the behave like a guest metaphor. As he speaks, Sonny Hostin starts pressing back, pulling up crime stats to challenge his point. But then, something changes. Hostin's tone grows sharper. Arnold pauses. Their eyes meet. Tension crackles. And in one surprising move, Sonny reaches out, her hand gripping his arm midair, not in aggression, but in a sudden bid to stop him from speaking over her. The camera lingers. The audience gasps. Arnold's expression shifts from confident authority to stunned silence. The moment freezes the broadcast. No music plays. The studio lights feel too bright. There's a beat of stunned stillness, like everyone is waiting to see what comes next. On the live stream chat, messages flood in. Did she just touch him? This is crazy. He looked speechless. Within minutes, clips hit TikTok and X. Hostin physically intervenes. Unprecedented. Discussion explodes around that one grasped moment. Was it an attempt to de-escalate, a sign of panic, or a subtle protest against Arnold's rhetoric? And now, as the buzz spreads, the burning question becomes, when a debate crosses the line into a physical moment, who crossed it first and who lost control? You don't even realize how tense the room has become until Whoopi Goldberg leans forward, cutting off the silence. "Let's take a breath," she says, her voice firm but calm, a host stepping in before a conversation spirals completely out of control. But the damage is already done. The moment Sonny Hostin reached across the table to physically touch Arnold Schwarzenegger, the tone of the show changed, and so did the way people saw the debate. Arnold slowly moves his arm back, just enough to show he's not escalating. But his face says it all. This wasn't just a clash of opinions anymore. It had crossed into personal territory. His point about immigrants needing to behave like guests had already sparked visible discomfort. But being physically interrupted? That sent a message to viewers far beyond the show's loyal daytime audience. By the time the segment goes to commercial, the live chat is flooded with polarized reactions. Why did she grab him like that? He was speaking over her. She had every right. This isn't how a panel is supposed to work. He needed to be stopped. He was spouting nonsense. Producers scramble behind the scenes. A mic is cut. A producer's voice echoes faintly from off-camera. "We'll reset after break." But no one in the room is relaxed anymore. Joy Behar stares down at her notes. Sarah Haynes avoids eye contact. And Sonny? She's steady, unshaken, almost defiant. Later, media outlets will spin it in every direction. Arnold silenced by facts. Sonny Hostin crosses the line. Tensions explode on the View stage. But in the moment, one truth is clear. What started as a fiery discussion turned into something visceral. And now everyone watching is forced to choose not just a side, but a threshold. Because when real-world issues collide with real-time emotion, the question becomes, when does passion become a problem? And who gets blamed when lines are crossed? The headlines hadn't even cooled by the time the full clip went viral. It wasn't just the argument. It was the moment Sonny Hostin's hand landed on Arnold Schwarzenegger's forearm that kept being replayed, dissected, and slowed down frame by frame like a political Zapruder film. And while the action itself wasn't violent, the symbolism hit harder than most viewers were ready for. You scroll your feed and every platform is divided. Some users call it an act of disrespect, a deliberate interruption meant to silence. Others insist it was a protective move, a necessary intervention to stop a problematic narrative from dominating the conversation. Either way, one thing is clear. The tap changed the entire meaning of the moment. Fox News runs with it immediately. Physical altercation on daytime TV. Hostin grabs Schwarzenegger in fiery debate. MSNBC reframes it. Sonny Hostin shuts down immigrant smear. Tensions boil over. Even international outlets are chiming in. The clip crosses borders, language barriers, and political lines in under 24 hours. Behind the scenes, anonymous sources say producers had to hold an emergency meeting. "We've dealt with heated segments," one claims, but never a live contact moment like this. "We had no protocol for that." Allegedly, legal advisors were brought in to review whether any liability was at stake, but no one's issuing statements yet. As the conversation deepens, people begin asking more than just who was right or wrong. They start examining the dynamic. Why did it take physical contact to stop the conversation? Would the same thing have happened if it were a male host confronting Arnold? What if the roles were reversed? And now, the audience isn't just reacting to what happened on camera, they're grappling with the deeper narrative behind it. Because when words fail and hands get involved, even just a touch, the fallout isn't just about TV drama. It's about boundaries, power, and the question that haunts every debate: who's allowed to speak and who's allowed to interrupt? You check the headlines the next morning, and it's no longer just about The View. It's about something deeper: the collision of identity, politics, and physical boundaries on national television. Sunny Hostin, a Black Latina legal analyst and former prosecutor, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, a white immigrant turned governor with decades of power and celebrity behind him, have now become stand-ins for two sides of a countrywide argument. Commentators on both ends of the spectrum are weighing in. One writes, "It's not just about a hand on an arm, it's about who gets to stop the narrative." Another counters, "Imagine if Arnold had touched her. We'd be calling it a scandal." And that's the point now. The moment has become bigger than the moment. Clips are edited, narratives are repackaged. One TikTok stitches together Sunny's touch with old clips of politicians being silenced or shouted down, creating a montage called "How Women Hold the Line." Another video flips the script, labeling the gesture entitled, disrespectful, and a breakdown of civil discourse. Meanwhile, neither Arnold nor Sunny issues a public apology. Not yet. Their silence only fuels the storm. Some speculate it's intentional, a choice to avoid feeding the frenzy. Others think it's strategy, a waiting game to see where public opinion lands before anyone speaks up. Inside the talk show circuit, producers scramble to brief their own hosts. If anything gets physical, even slightly, cut to commercial. Suddenly, this isn't just a media moment, it's a cautionary tale. And now the country is left asking, was this the cost of passion, or the symptom of a culture where no one listens unless someone makes it physical? You're scrolling through a late-night panel show when a new angle drops. Literally. An alternate camera angle of the Sunny-Arnold exchange leaks, one that hadn't aired during the live broadcast. It's closer, clearer, slower. And suddenly, what seemed like a quick tap is now under an even sharper microscope. The clip shows Sunny leaning in, reaching across the table, hand grazing Arnold's arm with just enough force to interrupt. Not slap, not grab, but assert. Arnold looks down at the contact, then back at her, and something flickers in his expression. Not anger, not fear, but restraint. The kind that says, this could go somewhere, but I won't let it. And that's what everyone starts talking about now. Not just the moment itself, but the restraint from both of them. Because in a culture obsessed with escalation, neither person escalated, but everyone else did. The narrative begins to shift. A columnist writes, "We watched a controlled moment ignite an uncontrolled response, not from the people in the room, but from the ones watching." Other voices jump in. Arnold didn't retaliate, Sunny didn't push again. That's not an altercation, that's tension. Still, some aren't buying it. Conservative influencers accuse the show of double standards, arguing that if a man had interrupted a woman that way, the fallout would have been career-ending. Liberal commentators counter, that's the whole point. Men do it all the time. One woman does it once, and suddenly it's an attack. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, ABC execs are reportedly reviewing future guest protocols, not because of violence, but because of optics. How to handle fiery guests, how to avoid uncomfortable viral moments that spin far beyond the control room. And now, as the dust settles, one truth remains. Sometimes the most explosive moments aren't loud. They're quiet, uncomfortable, and caught on tape. And the only question that lingers is, when the cameras roll again, who's really in control? The hosts or the audience? You're watching a morning recap show when the host turns serious. "We need to talk about what happened on The View," she says, before cutting to yet another replay of the now infamous exchange. Sunny Hostin's hand tapping Arnold Schwarzenegger's forearm during a heated debate over immigration. But this time, the discussion isn't about who was right, it's about how we got here. Because what started as a disagreement over facts turned into something else entirely, something visceral. A split-second physical gesture became the symbol of how divided the nation is over identity, race, power, and who controls the conversation. A viral tweet lays it out. Sunny Hostin represents every woman who's had to fight to be heard. Arnold represents the system that never had to raise its voice. Underneath, replies spiral into war zones, some accusing Sunny of being unprofessional, others defending her as a truth teller who wouldn't be silenced. But then something unexpected happens. People start sharing their own stories. A teacher posts, "I've had students push boundaries in class debates. One girl cried after being cut off. A boy once walked out. But we never taught them how to handle disagreement with dignity." A corporate manager chimes in our meetings, When a woman interrupts to correct a man, she's aggressive. When a man does it, he's assertive. Tell me again why people are mad at Sunny? Suddenly, the conversation moves beyond the view. It becomes a mirror. Because this wasn't just about Arnold or Sunny anymore. It was about every room where voices compete, and where one small action can carry decades of unspoken weight. And now, one question echoes louder than any headline. If physicality is condemned when it breaks silence, but silence is used to ignore injustice, what then is the right way to be heard? You check the trending page, and for the first time, the headlines have shifted. It's no longer just Sunny versus Arnold or physical altercation on The View. Now, it's something deeper, something reflective. An op-ed from a former television producer goes viral. The headline? When debate becomes theater, who really wins? In it, the writer breaks down the anatomy of modern talk shows, how producers often want tension, not resolution, how conflict drives views, how moments like the Sunny-Arnold exchange become less about the topic and more about the moment. They write, "We don't book guests to agree, we book them to combust. Then we wonder why the flames burn beyond our control." And in that realization, something shifts. Clips of the incident are no longer being posted with outrage. They're being posted with captions like, "This is what we've become." The internet begins to reflect on itself. Not entirely. There's still noise, still sides, still narratives being fought for, but there's also fatigue. A quiet wave of people saying, maybe it's time we stop turning every disagreement into war. Meanwhile, Arnold finally breaks his silence. In a brief, measured tweet, he says, Debate is healthy, disagreement is necessary, but we all have a duty to keep things respectful, on and off camera." Sunny reposts it with a single word, agreed. And just like that, the noise softens. Not because the issue is resolved, but because the moment has been processed. The cameras keep rolling, the show continues, but something lingers, because this wasn't just a fight, it was a flashpoint, a reminder of how easily passion becomes performance, and how performance, when unchecked, can distort the very truth it's meant to spotlight. And now, you're left with the final, uneasy question. In a world where every voice wants to be heard, what happens when being seen becomes louder than being right?